All right, Lungile Mashele, who's an energy analyst, joins me now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. So Eskom says the power will stay on this weekend. What else stood out for you in that briefing?
Thank you so much for having me. So one of the key things that stood out is that they have about 6,000 megawatts odd that is on planned maintenance. So that's telling us that they are doing some work towards the philosophy and their reliability maintenance. So in the next 18 months or so, we should start seeing results coming from that. So they do have some capacity. Their unplanned maintenance is down from about highs of about 18,000 megawatts. We're now down to about 11,000 megawatts, which is more in line with what we've seen in the past and is manageable by the utility ultimately. So for this weekend, we are pretty confident that nothing will happen, but Eskom being Eskom, yes, the units can trip like at any time. And Andre has warned that there are 2 units that they are looking out for today. However, there are other units coming online today as well. So we should be okay.
See what happens. Talk to us about the kind of cost to the economy that we've suffered because of these rolling blackouts and the possible future costs of continued rolling blackouts.
So, Nzinga, all along we've been working on the assumption that load shedding is basically costing us 1 billion rand a day for each stage. So if we're load shedding at stage 4, that is 4 billion rand a day lost to the economy. Now, this is very scary because if you look at what the CSIR report said, that 2020 was the worst year on record. Now, what we've seen from the intermediate data is that actually 2021 has surpassed that, and we're not even at the end of 2021 yet. So this ultimately will be the worst year, and especially at stage 4. We've never experienced load shedding at stage 4 for this prolonged period. This has meant a problem for industry, for commerce, for SMEs. And this is obviously coming on the back of some kind of COVID recovery, so it's completely annihilated that as well. You've got people working from home, as the guy who's being interviewed rightly pointed out. You've got students who are supposed to be writing exams who are unable to. There is so much damage to the economy, it is untold.
Eskom itself is in a dire financial position. We heard the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, talking about the possibility of selling off Eskom assets to reduce its over 18 billion rand debt. Talk to us a little bit more about that and what Andre de Ruyter said about that.
Actually, it's 450 billion rand debt that Eskom owes various parties across the world. And for the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a call from private sector, public sector, NGOs saying, how are we going to sort out the Eskom debt? Because Eskom is not able to pay that debt. I mean, it's absolutely humongous. There were even calls of GPF, the pension funds, stepping in and taking over that debt. And then yesterday, the minister just announced that they're going to start selling off Eskom assets, Eskom power plants. Now, this came as a bit of a shock because you will recall that Eskom has been talking about repurposing some of its coal-fired plants into solar and into gas as well. And we do know that there is a decommissioning plan. So we're not entirely sure what plants is the minister referring to. And when Andre was pressed for question, he promptly said, please speak to the ministry, and because they are the policy people and they'll be able to tell you and give you clear guidelines. And that is absolutely scary when the CEO of an organization is unaware that his assets are for sale.
Eskom is a problem that has been with South Africa for so long. There seems to be no solutions in sight. We've seen a number of CEOs coming and going. We've also seen earlier on people calling for the resignation of Andre de Ruyter, the board, and the minister as well. But practically, what are the challenges to resolve our current situation?
So Eskom has a capacity problem. They do not have sufficient capacity, right? And at the same time, they are trying to do maintenance so that their plants are more reliable, and they don't have that space in order to do maintenance. Now, to give them that space to do maintenance, they've got one of two options: either to load shed the country constantly at stage 2, but however, that will have serious economic implications. Or you can go and procure additional capacity very quickly, and that is going to be cheap. Okay, so they can possibly do that, and Eskom is saying that they need about 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts of additional capacity so that they can run their maintenance adequately, and that's in the short term. In the long term, there is the decommissioning that Eskom is going to be going through, and in addition to that, they are going to decommission about 11,000 megawatts by 2030. This is going to have to be replaced by something else, whether this is renewables, is gas, is coal, is nuclear, is a debate for another day, but that's the long-term plan. In the short-term plan, Eskom needs to ensure that they have sufficient capacity in any means that are necessary.
Lungile Mashele, thanks so much for your insight and analysis on SABC News this afternoon.